I'm Ryan Stevens.
Dr. Taylor Waters.
I'm Ben Oliver.
Welcome to the Supra Human show, yeah?
Welcome to the Supra Human show. I'm your host, Ben Oliver, joined with Ryan Stevens and Dr. Taylor Waters. So today we have a Mythbuster segment. So we've got some of the most common myths or sayings that people will say as a reason why they're not making progress or a reason why they're doing a certain plan. And so we thought we would go through some of the most common ones and take a nice big shit on them. So Taylor, if you want to read them out and we can go through them.
First one, starvation mode or not eating enough.
So this is like I'm not losing weight because I'm not eating enough food.
Yeah. I'm under eating, so my my metabolic furnace has come to a halt.
The same person that's solved like world starvation, people dying left, right, and center.
Coaches like pumping this one out as well because they start to put it on eat more to lose more. And that sounds, how good is that? That's like saying work less, earn more. Like, fantastic. Let's or don't work, earn loads. Like it's just like, how far down that route do you want to go?
I think it gets confused where people are mistaking total calorie intake for volume of food, where you could eat more volume and lose weight, but your overall energy intake is lower or is actually what it should be, not what you think it is.
Yeah.
It's like food mass can be higher, can't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but you've got, what was that guy's name, Taylor? Like the Italian bloke who didn't eat for a year and dropped like hundreds of kilos or something.
That's like in the 60s. It was like in the 60s, wasn't it?
He didn't suffer from
Was it
starvation.
something like 380 days?
Yeah.
He lost like 180 something pounds, and all he had was salt and tea.
He didn't suffer from starvation.
No. I bet he was starving. I bet he was. Imagine getting like, I've always thought that. Imagine like you've gone to doctors and you've been like, right, let's start this study now. We're going to go, I'm not going to eat, because his plan was, I'm not going to eat anything until I get to 170 pounds. And he was like 380 pounds or whatever he was. And imagine getting like 7 hours in and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm starving.
What have I done?
My cravings are really kicking off here. What have I done? You've got like a year and a half ahead of you.
I bet though, like you would get to a point where it's just the norm.
Yeah, he said 2 months. He said after 2 months, he said it stopped. He just food was gone.
But that's such an extreme example where when people are saying, because I'm eating 1,200 calories a day, my body has somehow managed to rewire itself and adapt to this, that I'm no longer losing body fat. And this is always in people that have a shitload of fat to come off. Mm-hmm. If someone was staged lean and they're like, it's just not coming off, I'd be like, you know what? Like you're probably done at this point. Like you really are starving.
Yeah.
But it's the people that are always living in first world countries, you know, but they're not in Africa.
Starvation modes never happen.
Yeah. They got access to food in abundance.
It's funny that, isn't it? The starvation mode never hit places where starvation is rife.
It's actually prevalent. If you said to these people, "Are you in starvation mode?" I was just born.
Some like 270 pound guy, like, oh god, I haven't eaten for weeks and I'm getting fatter.
But it's a really common one that we see. And I really haven't seen any situation, unless there is an underlying health issue regarding maybe they've got which I always get it confused. Is it Graves' disease? Like basically underactive thyroid, hypothyroid, which hasn't been caused by their diet restriction.
No,
it's caused by genetics, and their thyroid is just not functioning properly. And the only way to cure, you can't cure it, but the only way to get rid of the symptoms of that is to take thyroid medication. There's nothing that you can do with food. That's completely different to, say, us going through a diet phase, our thyroid dropping down in terms of production, but then coming back. Like it's very transient based on calorie intake and body fat.
That's why I swear I saw online, if you soak your foot in pickle juice, that's going to solve your thyroid
Yeah.
problems.
Fuck me. There's some bit of iodized salt that'll get it back. It's like that's not gonna kill your hypothyroidism. But yeah, so it is a common one, and the most common things that we'll see is it's normally one of two things. People just aren't being honest with themselves.
Yeah.
And they almost sign up to your program to prove you wrong. They're not doing it because they really want to get results. They're doing it to say nothing works for me, and I'll show you that nothing works.
They're looking for
and
the
it's
exit.
like I've got nothing to gain, like or lose by you not getting your results, because I know that I can get results with people if they do what the plan is. And so by you going, I told you it doesn't work, it's like my life goes on. And it's like, okay, let's just say you're right. Now what? Do you just accept that your body cannot ever lose fat ever again? Or maybe do you have to have a hard conversation with yourself and be like, you know what, maybe I'm just not being honest.
Yeah.
And it's either, alcohol that they're not logging, or weekend cheat meals, cheat days, licks, bites, tastes off their kids' plates that they're not tracking, creamers, sweeteners, cooking oils, things that like, I don't want to say hidden calories, but just things that aren't that obvious that can add up quite fast. Or so it's one of the two things. They either aren't being honest with themselves, or their tracking skills suck.
Yeah.
And they genuinely believe that they are following their plan, but they're just not like
They're not good enough with their skills.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the ideal scenario, because then we can say, hey, like I can see the holes in your tracking game right now. We can improve that. But when you're trying to talk to a client and say, look, you're 250 pounds and you're claiming that you're eating 800 calories a day and you're not losing any weight, like I cannot accept that. I cannot accept that possibility. Like we've got blood work done and everything is functioning, like you're healthy as a horse.
Yeah.
So like the math ain't mathin', kind of thing. And that's a hard conversation to have when you repeatedly see
I think you say, Taylor, don't you? It's like one of two things. You've either solved like one of the biggest problems in the world, starvation, or something's wrong with your skill set. You know? And as long as they're accepting, it's like, look, I know that I'm over consuming for some reason. Their awareness is here. It's like, help me figure out what's going on, because I know I haven't cured starvation. But it's the ones who actually think that they are actually starving, and that's why they can't drop weight.
So, well, it's sometimes it's like, well, if you think you're under eating, let's put calories up
and see what
let's
happens.
put them up even higher and let's see what goes on. I guess there are circumstances, like if someone is eating quite low calories and they feel like their energy is quite poor, therefore their physical activity levels are quite poor.
Yep.
And then sometimes they increase that intake by 200, 300, but that increase results in them feeling much better. Therefore, they start being way more physically active than they were. And then they burn an extra 500 a day. Okay, makes sense.
I'm eating more and I'm losing more weight. But there's like, again, the math adds up on the back end.
Yes.
And you do see that. I see like a tipping point with clients where you maybe take their calories a bit too low and either their adherence goes down and then they're like, oh, like we dropped my calories by 200, but like I'm not losing. But it's because they're sneaking in food now because they're so hungry.
Yeah.
You find a middle ground and then they start losing weight again because they can actually stick to it. Perfectly reasonable. I think the one that you mentioned where the calories go so low that they're just exhausted. And if you're not tracking steps and things, you'll naturally move less, you'll fidget less, you'll just burn overall less calories. I think another one, less to the extreme, and because this is kind of a different situation, but people forget to realize, like, if you've lost 50 pounds, you don't need as much food to maintain your weight. You're like, imagine putting on a 50-pound weight vest for 24 hours. Do you think you'd burn more calories than you are without that vest?
Yeah.
Because that was you. Like, that's what you were carrying around, and you're not anymore. So if you go, like, I've ruined my metabolism now, like, I can't eat 3,000 calories a day, otherwise I gain weight. It's like, yeah, because you're fucking half the size. Like, you just don't need that much fuel anymore. It's no different than, smaller women that we work with. They don't need as many calories as, the 200-pound fucking muscle heads.
Gorilla,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what they've done is they've taken the concept of metabolic adaptation, whereby, yes, as you just said, like, there are some metabolic adaptations you will see through a fat loss phase, like if you do lose weight, you're carrying around less weight, therefore you burn less being you. Like there are some adaptations that do occur. However, that's not gonna, if you're like 240 pounds down from 260, it's not like, oh, well, my maintenance was at 2,750, now it's 300.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't do that. Like you know, you probably, again, it depends on the activity levels of the person and the body composition from muscle to fat ratio and things. But, you know, okay, yeah, you might drop off two. So whereas you were dropping a pound of body fat a week at 2,300 calories, now it might be 2,200.
Yeah.
No, it might be 2,150, and it might trickle down as time goes on. But yeah, there's normally an adherence thing going on. And it's like some people are like, oh, 2,000 calories isn't working for me anymore. First thing I say is like, well, is it truly 2,000? Or have you got a little bit complacent with your work? Have a few little bits started to creep in here and there, a bit more social events where you're estimating a bit more, and actually the true intake is now going up. So it's like, yeah, you're not in starvation mode. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and like that's there's a huge difference between being starving and being hungry. Yeah, like we use the word starving, like, oh, I haven't had I missed breakfast today, I'm starving.
Are you?
Because you haven't had your Cocoa Pops.
I tell you who's starving. The Italian bloke wasn't eating for a year.
Yeah.
He was starving.
Yeah, there's a bit of it, like you're a bit hangry.
Yeah.
You know, and most of the time you're not even hungry, you're bored.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to identify the differences there.
Most people in Western society, if you had to put it on a spectrum of like starving and really full, at worst they probably get to like peckish. Like they're peckish and they're like, oh, I'm starving. Like, you're not. You're so far.
Like, even if you're packed, it's just like, God, you got dinner in 3 hours. It's like, you'll be all right.
You sit tight.
Imagine you can't eat for another 6 months like the Italian bloke. You've just had breakfast and you got dinner in 3 hours. You'll be all right.
Yeah. But it's such a, funnily enough, because I don't want to single anyone out, but I think it used to be, it was almost like the number one excuse that I would have with female clients, where they'd be like, I'm not eating enough, that's why I'm not losing weight. Mm-hmm. But it seems to be more the guys now. Like I get it far more with male clients now. But it's very hard because from a coaching standpoint, you know, I can look at the numbers and be like, well, that's bollocks. Like there's just no way that that's true. But I can't, like, you know, I could have that conversation with one of you two and be like, well, this is fucking bullshit. And then you go, yeah. But when you've got good rapport with someone, or you've just built good rapport with someone, I don't want to ruin that by going, I think you're lying.
Yeah.
Because it's like people find that very offensive if you call them a liar. And again, you don't want to assume that they're making it up or they're lying or they're not being truthful, because maybe it is their skill set. And so I'll always lean on that one first.
Yeah.
And then if they're like, look, I swear down, you know, this is exactly what I'm eating, then I would say, well, we need to get blood work then.
Yeah.
And then we'll look at the blood work and be like, look, your blood work's healthy. You're claiming you're eating this. I've worked with, at this point, probably close to 1,000. I think like 1,000, when people go, I've worked with thousands.
Yeah.
You haven't.
Yeah, you've been coaching for 2 years.
Yeah. Your nan times 10 doesn't count. But, and then I would go, look, like I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in a very, very similar situation to you. And not once have I seen this issue before. Do you think that you are the 1 in 7-8 billion? I don't know what the world population is now. It just keeps going up. Clearly, we're doing something right. And it's like, do you think you're that one, or do you think there's something else?
Yeah.
And then they're kind of like, oh, I don't think I'm that special.
Yeah.
Like,
What I do, I like to calculate their BMI in front of them. I'll be like, okay, let's type in your details here. And I know a BMI calculation, calculate the BMR.
Yeah.
So I look at your BMR right in front of you. So it's like, and I know the BMR is not, it's not, you know, exact. However, it's going to give you a good rough idea.
Yeah.
So this is giving you your BMR is like 1,600. You're training 4 times a week at the moment. You're hitting 12,000 steps. So we can easily nudge, you know, a good few hundred calories on that again. So it's estimating your maintenance at 2,400. You're saying you're consuming 1,200, yet you're gaining weight. So let's look at the discrepancy in numbers there. There's a massive discrepancy in numbers. And it's like, if you truly think that's where you're at, let's get some blood work done because something's wrong. And if they genuinely think something's wrong, they would get blood work done.
Yeah.
Well, they should. But sometimes it's like, maybe I just need to
Yeah.
go easy on the waffles.
Leaning on the deficiency in their skill set is a great place to start first, and like asking them to just take photos of everything they eat, and like you can get a good idea. It's like, okay, you're saying you're eating 1,200 calories, but I can see a full English breakfast. There we go. There's like 1,200 on its own there, and they just may not know that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's,
There's-
Sometimes they go generic full English breakfst, 420 calories. And it's
Yeah.
like, right, what was that for a
Yeah,
mouse?
I seen one the other day. It was generic. What was it, like French toast or something like that, and it was like 60 calories. I was like, a normal slice of bread it's like 70 odd or like 110.
And
And you're talking about fried bread.
it can be really simple stuff like that though, where there was another client. He's having like 3 or 4 meals a day, and he's like, look, I'm eating chicken, broccoli, and rice. And then I looked on his MyFitnessPal, and he was logging it as like a third of a cup of rice, which like cooked weight, which I guess was like 25 grams carbs or something. And then I was like, take pictures of your meals, and I look at it, and I was like, mate, you're looking at least 3 cups of cooked rice there. Like that's I don't know whether you've got the cooked and uncooked.
Yeah.
Like you're doing like a third uncooked, and then it's like whatever. But I was like, you're looking at least like 70, 80 grams of carbs per meal.
Yeah.
There's the difference.
Yes.
Like, we're talking like 400 calories across your day there. The moment we change that, or for him, I didn't even do it, and I said, stop eating rice and replace it with fruit, because you can't fuck that up.
Yeah.
And then so he did fruit, rapid weight loss. It's like, oh, there we go. Wasn't his fault. Like, genuinely thought that he was doing it, but there was just the numbers just didn't add up.
Another one I see is like with people like guys that they almost think, you know, like little snacky stuff, like a handful of nuts here, or they like picky. They get swept under the carb. They don't get like tracked.
Yeah.
And those calories across the day like rack up massively.
Nuts, the handfuls of nuts.
I did this years ago when I lived in Derby. I was like, I'm going to track my food intake for the day, like to the fucking letter, like scale out everything. Like even if I grabbed something from the cupboard and snacked, weigh it first, log it.
Which you probably would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And then the next day I was like, I'm just going to log my meals, but not the handfuls of shit that I get. The difference was like 700 calories like through the day. And when I look back, I was like, that was only a couple handfuls. And that's what people do. And that's the difference between losing 2 pounds a week and not losing any weight.
Yeah.
And so just those simple tweaks will make a huge difference. So
Because if you think about the type of snacks that generally people snack, things like nuts and things like a biscuit, they're dense.
they're not biting
chips.
they're not biting celery. Are they? Yeah.
Not a handful of raspberries.
Yeah.
And they're like so dense as well, and low volume, so they're not even filling.
Only had a handful of M&Ms. Like the most densest fucking snack that you
Got
can
chocolate covered peanuts. Yeah, same.
Yeah. So I mean, if you've ever said this myth, I would say really look at your skill set of tracking. Be honest with yourself. They're really. We don't want to say there's no such thing as metabolic adaptation, because there is, but you're not going to suddenly adapt to eating 1,200 calories if you are a 200-pound male.
A general rule of thumb: if you've eaten at a restaurant in the past 30 days, you're not suffering from starvation.
Yeah.
Like, let's just if the simple way to solve that, if I'm definitely not starving if I'm like going out for meals.
Yeah.
I'm buying, not a chance. So next we've got sugar making you fat. So sugar is the devil.
I mean, this like falls into when you go on social media. It's everything you see is like, here's the one thing that's ruining your progress. Like, here's the one food that you should avoid. Here's this, and it's always like, that's the thing. And because we spoke about this before, obesity isn't down to one thing. It's like there are so many factors that will play into it as to why our countries are fat as fuck. And that's like food availability, culture,
Sedentary behavior.
like income, stress responses, like childhood upbringing. Like there's so much stuff.
Access to food.
Like
It's like we've got more, I think sugar intake, there was a graph which was showing sugar intake over like a 20-year period, and it actually went down.
obesity is gone.
Obesity's continued. And we've got more gyms than ever. We're eating less sugar than we have done for a while, for example, yet obesity still continues to rise. Like, it's much more complex than a singular thing.
Do you remember, like, before they singled out sugar, it was just generally carbs are the bad thing, and then all of a sudden it went to just like sugar, and then it's like, hang on a minute. So now fruit is okay, but then
It's
you
so
can't
hard.
have like
I bet there's a direct correlation between an increase in obesity and when Deliveroo fucking come around, or DoorDash or whatever.
yeah.
As soon as it's like, nah, we'll deliver everything to your door. Like, cool. So I have to move. I don't even have to get in my car and drive now.
I was thinking this the other day, like years and years ago, we would have had to like dig a hole outside with a shovel to get a carrot. So it's like you've burned all those calories to pick up this thing which has like 40 calories in it. Now I can like sit at my desk. I definitely could. I could pay him enough to come up the stairs in the room, put it on one of my plates for me, and then go back. You had a couple of quid. There we go.
Yeah.
Do you remember like the standard like 3 meals, 2 snacks is kind of like back in the day? It's like, yeah, but they were working their bollocks out of it. Like these days, you only need 1 meal. Everything's at your fingertips.
3
you know?
meals, 2 snacks. Yeah.
I don't think there are any fucking fat miners.
No.
They were eating Cornish pasties every day.
Well, you wouldn't fit down there otherwise. There wasn't much room.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a job.
It's a health hazard. Yeah. But I think it's when people say, no, carbs aren't bad, but sugar is. It's like, what the fuck do you think carbs are?
That was where the
Like,
switch was, wasn't it? Originally it was carbs bad, and then it went to sugar, and it's like, hang on a minute. Like, they're essentially the same thing.
There's nuance to it, like fructose and glucose and things, but like when you're talking about just basic sugar molecule, like
four calories,
carbohydrate or like starch is a bunch of sugar attached together. So you just have to do a bit more digestion to break it down into its separate molecule. This is why I love Trevor, because his background was biochemistry. And so when people talked about sweeteners or carbs or anything, his mind goes to the lowest denominator in terms of the molecule and how your body deals with that. So like aspartame, whatever however people want to call it, he would say, well, it gets broken down into these molecules, which is like phenylalanine, like aspartic acid and something else. It's
got a bit of something.
And it's like, and this is what your body does to it. And so it's like, right. So your body doesn't go, sweetener, bad. It will break it down into the constituents and then do what it needs to do with them. And so when you look at that, like, because then you can go, hey, guess what? These 3 things are found in fucking eggs and tomatoes and things, but they're just not put together.
Yeah.
And so when you start looking at foods more like that, you're like, it all breaks down.
It's
into
just
the same
another
thing.
level of understanding, isn't it?
Yeah. But again, it's, for an endurance athlete, I probably do recommend a high sugar diet because they need to get in a shitload of carbohydrates fast if they're doing 2-a-days, 3-a-day sessions.
Well, have you seen, was it Thorpe or Phelps diet? Michael Phelps
Michael
diet?
Phelps swimmer.
Yeah, it was like I don't know how true it was, but it was like a 13,000 calorie diet.
I think it was blown up a little bit, but I think he was packing in 6,000-7,000 calories.
Yeah, he's probably getting a fair whack, and a lot of it was nonsense because it's like
he's in the pool 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's like
and you can't eat a lot of, like, imagine trying to swim with a massive bloated belly full of veg. Like that ain't gonna happen. He needs small portion size, lots of calories for the size.
I think it's like context is everything, isn't it? Because like for the general person trying to drop body fat, well, sugar isn't very satiating. So if you need to be in a deficit, probably chances are you want to limit it. You know,
there was I saw a thing.
Rocket fuel, isn't it?
I saw a thing on Instagram ages ago, and it was basically bigging up sugar, and they would call it instant energy, and it's like just 3 grams, like, and you'll feel good. And I was like, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
and because I think like it's just straight sugar, not maple syrup, honey, like just like granulated sugar, you can't get more than 2 teaspoons in, and then you're like, and then you're only talking, that's probably what, 15-20 grams of carbs, like 80 calories, and you're done. I don't think you can overeat sugar on its own. It's what it comes with. Like if you're eating cereal, it's like, well, that's not just sugar. You've got milk, some kind of like wheat, corn, whatever it is that's been sweetened. If you're eating pastries, you've got butter and sugar, which is the fucking lethal combination.
Oh, great for the taste buds.
Yeah.
Butter and sugar together.
Yeah, you eat them separate, they're really nothing. But as soon as you put them together, again, your body will break them down separately. But like when you mix them together into a cake, you can fucking go to town
This
on it.
dense ball of it.
But it's not the butter that's the problem. It's not the sugar that's the problem. It's what you've made it into.
that's when clients say, "Oh, I'm addicted to sugar." And I was like, "Okay, tell me your favorite foods which contain sugar." And it's all like hyper palatable stuff like donuts, biscuits. It's like, well, there's just as much fat in those as it is sugar. You know what I mean? So and that's what makes your taste buds tingle.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But yeah, I think anytime someone tries to single out the one thing that's the reason why you're overweight, you're not looking at the big picture. Like just like we've said, are you consuming foods which happen to contain high amounts of sugar? And if they contain high amounts of sugar, they tend to contain less fiber. They tend to be less filling. They tend to be very easy to overeat, which then puts you over your calorie needs for the day. And when you consistently do that, then you get fat.
Yeah.
Like that's really what it comes down to. It's not the food's fault. It's the habits and behaviors around it.
There's normally, like, with these things, there is an element of truth to them. Like, they haven't come from just like complete nothing. They haven't been completely made up. But like the starvation mode, like there is something metabolic adaptation. Like a high sugar diet, okay, it normally isn't great if you are trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
But what they've done is they've taken that slight element of truth and they've blown it up to try and make
the
it
be-all, end-all.
Yeah, the be all end all, and it's not. It's much more complex than that.
Yeah.
Often those people, they're almost like cherry picking it to try and sell you something to make money off the
Because
back.
I mean, even like I think most research will show like the more fiber that you eat, the longer you tend to live. But there's also like eating 200 grams of fiber a day is going to be terrible for you.
Yeah.
Like that will probably kill you faster.
Yeah.
So it's like, but people will just take everything out of proportion and context.
Yeah.
And really what that research is saying is people that eat vegetables and fruit and include fiber in their diet, they probably eat less shit, like junk food and things, or these high calorie foods. They probably aren't as overweight because they're not eating those foods. Because they're not overweight, maybe they exercise more. And so was it the fiber or is it the knock-on effect of all of those things?
Yeah.
And so this is the problem with any nutrition research. You can't isolate anything. And it's always like a synergistic effect between everything. So you can't always say, all you can say is there's correlations.
Yeah.
There's not causality. And I think that's what people get confused with is like sugar is causing us to be fat. It's like, no, there may be a correlation, but there's going to be 50 other factors that go alongside that, which are potentially causing the issue.
Yeah.
correlation doesn't equal causation, does it? But a lot of people think it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the next one we got?
What do we got? Yeah. Protein absorption per sitting.
So funny enough, this was I remember when I was at college, there was a ambassador of Lucozade that came in, and they were talking about this, and because they had just come out with their protein shakes, and it was like 27 grams of protein a serving, and they were like, because you can only absorb 27 grams in a sitting, and anything else it gets wasted, and you just wee it out, and I was like, I don't think that's true. Even I was like 19 then. But I think that's been a common thing where it's like you can only absorb X amount and then it gets wasted.
Yeah.
But I think people don't really understand that, like we were saying, you barely use any of your protein intake for the day to actually build muscle. Like none of it gets wasted. Like if you say wasted, it's like, well, it gets broken down and converted into glucose and used as energy. It's not wasted.
No.
It's just not used to build muscle,
Yeah.
but it's used for enzyme production, skin, hair health, like all of these other things. You only use a very small percentage of that to build muscle on a daily
You need
basis.
X amount to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, and that can differ person to person, normally 20 to 30 grams, depending on the person.
I think what it came from was they did more research into L-leucine, and then they said, well, you need 3 grams of leucine in a sitting to basically start the ignition for muscle protein synthesis. And typically you would find 3 grams of leucine in about 30 grams of protein from most sources. Eating more than that, once the ignition's turned, you can't turn it on harder. Like in that sense, it's a light switch. It's not a dimmer. But that doesn't mean that when you eat more protein in that sitting, it gets wasted.
No.
It's just cool. You've activated protein synthesis.
You're not going to activate it more
Yeah.
if you eat more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's just been another paper come out, which everyone's got a fucking hard on over. Is like, there was no point of diminishing returns in terms of like protein intake post-workout. That like they basically did a study where one of the groups ate 100 grams of protein post-workout, and it looked like muscle protein synthesis just continued to stay high. But then they also said that, well, they failed to mention, or people talking about the study, they used casein in that 100 grams, which is a slow digesting protein. So you're not absorbing that 100 grams post workout. You're absorbing it over the next 12 hours because it's still getting broken down in that time frame. But also, it still doesn't override daily protein needs. And like bodybuilders knew this shit 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, eat a good amount of protein after you train.
Yeah.
Like it
hasn't changed.
not
anything.
groundbreaking stuff.
No.
Yeah.
Do you know, even if it, let's say, if it was wasted, even though it's not, right? It's just not all going to muscle building muscle. Like a lot of my guys, they're on more protein than they actually need just to keep them satiated.
Yeah.
So they stick to their plan. So even if it was wasted, if they're adhering to their plan overall, that's the outcome that we want because they want to drop body fat.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like all context again, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's funny. I remember I first heard about this when I was doing my like personal trainer course, and I remember the woman who was taking the course on this module. She was like, "Oh, do any guys in here use protein shakes?" And I raised my hand.
Don't need them. Wasting.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I just threw up the swans. I did. Yeah, why? And
What do you think, lady? Side chest.
and she was like, "Oh, you're wasting all that. You can only absorb 25 grams a day."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Huh?" Like, well, and at the time, I didn't have the understanding. This was years and years ago. I didn't understand enough to be like, she's lying. I was just a bit like, doesn't it? I can see from looking at the world around me that is an odd thing to say. It's like I've got this whole culture where people aren't abiding to that rule and mention that rule. Yet this one woman has now been like, "Oh, you're all stupid. I actually know." I was a bit like, that's strange. And then a couple of years later, I realized, oh no, she was actually stupid. But because she was the senior in that role, it's the classic, well, she's above me in this room. Yeah. So I believe what she's saying. But it's like even people above you can be stupid as well.
I the Lucozade woman, she said to me, "You're better off getting McDonald's milkshakes than drinking your protein shakes." And I was like, "Oh, right." And I was like, "Well, I like McDonald's milkshakes, but I like," because that was when I was just learning about calories and stuff. And I was like, "Well, my protein shake has 160 calories. I know a McDonald's milkshake has like double that." Yeah. Maybe she meant I could do with more carbs rather than I'm eating enough protein anyway.
Yeah.
But again, there wasn't really any context. It's like, swap your protein shakes for McDonald's shakes. Yeah. That's the last advice I would give my clients.
Oh God, yeah.
If anything, I would do the opposite. I would go buy some Core Light shakes and drink them instead of.
I tell you what, mate,
McDonald's.
a strawberry McDonald's shake. Oh,
Well, I'm thinking, what's that one? Is it Yazoo?
Yazoo, yeah.
Oh,
I used to have
God,
that.
they're good. They are.
I tell you what, when I was in sixth form, I'd blast a massive chest session, straight to the shop, kebab and a Yazoo. Oh, protein in it.
I used to do
Definitely not starvation mode.
I used to do a liter of chocolate milkshake and 4 donuts after I trained.
How many calories is that, do you reckon?
No wonder you were
4
strong.
donut.
Added 60 pounds to my squat that year.
Now it all makes sense. Crikey.
And that wouldn't touch the sides. It would be like, eat that on the way home and then go have a meal.
And then have dinner,
You look back and you're like, how the fuck did you do that?
Yeah.
And I was like, but again, I was doing probably 6 gym sessions a week. I was playing basketball 5 times a week for at least 2 hours a pop. And I was cycling to and from uni, it was like a 3 mile each way up a fucking massive hill one way. And we just didn't think anything of it. Like, I didn't know enough about overtraining or that you shouldn't be able to do, like, you shouldn't do a bunch of cardio and a bunch of weights if you got to, like, I just didn't know. And I got stronger, I got leaner, built muscle. Like,
being stupid helps.
Yeah. Being ignorance bliss.
Bliss.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so true.
What do we got next year? Gut health and gut detox.
I think like
This has got a new one, isn't it?
The word detox just like, I don't like the word trigger because that sounds woke. But like I'll say my version. It fucks me off when people say I need a detox. I say, are you an alcoholic?
Yeah.
And they go, no. And I go, then you don't. Does your liver work properly? Yes, then you're fine. Kidneys? Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
I think it's just, again, I think it's a marketing word. And when you look at what the detoxes actually are, most of them, they always involve some kind of fasting, which, like, if you're having stomach issues, digestive issues, if you suffer from colitis, something like Crohn's, fasting can help. You're giving your digestive system a break because it's inflamed because of a condition that you have. Equally, if you've like had a binge day and you don't eat the next day, you're probably going to feel better than if you carried on eating because the tank is full. Like you're backed up. But when you call it a detox, because you're going to get rid of toxins, the moment you ask someone what toxins specifically, they're like, the bad ones.
But you just ask them, name me one toxin.
Yeah.
Would help.
Yeah. And it's like, how are you measuring the detoxification? Like, did you get your blood work done before you did this? Did you get it done afterwards? What markers are you looking at? And if you're just looking at like a general inflammatory marker, it's like, well, that's not toxins. And so it's like there's just no real science behind it.
Do you know, you make a really good point there. It's like the ones I notice who say those things, right? They don't know how they're measuring it. They don't even know what a toxin is. But what I always do, that's my marker to be like, okay, the ones who say they're going to
Ryan's marker.
Yeah, I have a marker,
and
I go,
idiot.
So like,
check.
It's like, so it's something like, tell me what happened yesterday, because often they'll detox as a result of a behavior they're not happy with. So I don't know, they may go on a bender for a weekend. It's like, oh, I need to go on this detox this week. It's like, okay, and rather than facing what that behavior that they're not happy with is, they'll just try and mask the problem. Like, oh, I'll do a detox, I'll be fine. Then what I did previously doesn't matter.
Solve the problem.
But it's like,
by
okay,
detoxing.
what are you detoxing from? Okay, I went on a bender on the weekend. Okay, let's focus on that instead. You know, so it's actually an indicator for me that okay, they've done something that they're not happy with, and they obviously want to detox from something. So it's a good conversation about, and that's something I have found. You know, so
well, again, like you detox, like they'll go on a detox from alcohol, for example.
Yeah.
And it's like, so an alcohol is, you only detox off negative things. You don't detox from positive things.
Yeah.
So it's like, I need to detox from, again, they know their problem is the overconsumption, or they're binge eating, or they're just slamming too much booze on the weekend.
And then it's going to be accompanied by like some tea that just tastes like fucking piss, and some metabolic booster which has probably got a little bit of caffeine in or something, and then you're going to do that for 7 days, and you're going to feel $1 million, and you're going to. I think the way most people are measuring detoxification is, oh, I lost weight. It's like you lost water and glycogen, maybe a little bit of fat because you ate nothing for the last 7 days. You've been on a 500 calorie a day diet for 7 days, and then you're going to go back to your previous behaviors and you're going to gain all that weight back. Yeah. It's pointless.
Yeah. And that's the difference. They go back to their previous behaviors because they didn't reflect on the behavior in the beginning.
No, they just tried to detox from it.
Tried to detox from it. Yeah.
You need to detox from detoxing.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. It's funny you say about piss flavored tea because there's actually a way of detoxing I've seen from where you detox by drinking your own pee. So it's not even pee flavored, it's just pee. So they pee in a glass, refrigerate it, and then leave it like 24 hours and then drink it. Oh, Christ. Imagine the breath on that. What have you had this morning?
That the only thing that reminds me of, I'm sure people in the UK remember this. People in the US they'll probably stop listening to this podcast after this. Remember the neck and nominate?
Oh God!
So it's basically this thing went around on Facebook when we used Facebook before Instagram. This must have been like 2011, 2012.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, and we were at university, and it was basically someone would chug a pint of beer, and then go, "I'll nominate 3 friends," and then the next person would chug something a little bit more extreme. Maybe they'd do like a
pint with a shot in it.
Yeah, a pint and a shot. And then it basically got to the point that people were doing like a pint of vodka. And then one of my friends did a pint of piss. and then I genuinely think it stopped because some bloke just chugged some shit. And then everyone was like, well, we can't top that. And it was just like, and then Neck and Nominate just ceased to exist. Like after that video went viral.
Mate, there's a guy in my school, loose cannon, real loose. And the video is still about somewhere, and it's one of the funniest videos you'll see. Like it got shared so many times, where it was, again, I might miss something here, but whatever I say is true. I might miss something out. So it's his own piss, dog food, Jack Daniels, olive oil, some lager, Worcester sauce, raw egg, and I think that's it. There might be something else that I'm missing, and he's mixing it up. And he doesn't even drink it. He ends up, he's trying to smell it. And he's like, and he's going, and he's being sick as he's trying to go. He ends up doing like 2 big chugs, and then he's like, he just starts to explode. Like, it's hilarious. But he's so confident as he's mixing it up. He's like, here we go. And the next thing he crumbles.
The smell just makes him go.
That'll clear you out.
He goes, thing is, I haven't got a very strong stomach, see? It's so good.
Make something that's so fucking bad that you'd be sick just sniffing it. You'd be like that.
There's some crazy detox stuff out there. Like, just I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole.
Can you imagine the thoughts when you actually legitimately think drinking your own refrigerated piss is going to detox you?
Yeah.
Gonna live forever.
Live forever.
Bottoms up.
Yaki da.
Every morning, like, oh.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
Right, what do we got now? Oh, fat burning versus fat loss.
I thought you were going to say fat birds then.
Oh, hang on. I've got a great story as well. One on the
nay?
piss.
Yeah.
I got one more great story of the piss, right? So,
Why are we still talking about piss?
yeah, hang on, 'cause it's a fucking good one. So when we was in uni, 2 of my mates, one of them, like an orange juice carton, so it's like roughly the same colour. One of my other mates went out in the night now to come downstairs, hungover, like, oh, give me some orange juice. My other mate had tipped it and pissed in it.
Oh, mate.
Chugging someone else's piss as well.
Everywhere on the floor.
God.
Think as well, if you're going to drink someone's piss, like, I'd want it to be like the healthiest,
Some hydrated stuff.
smallest, prettiest female. If that, not just like some hungover belter from the valley.
Been eating chicken and asparagus.
Like, I can only imagine, right, like, because his perspective, he come like so hungover, like, oh, I'm gonna have a nice cold bit of Sunny D, or like, got like you would chug as if like you hadn't had a drink in ages, and all of a sudden it hits the back of the throat. That's not Sunny D.
Lukewarm. Urine. Sunny you. Right, well, yeah.
That's going to be our new detox program.
Sunny you.
Yeah, Sunny you.
Sunny you.
Yeah.
Right, you got fat burning versus fat loss.
Okay. I think this is...
You see this a lot. This is a big one out there. This burns fat.
So I think the 2 main places that you'll see it is keto diet.
Yeah.
When people will say eat fat to burn fat, you absolutely will burn more fat, but you're eating more fat. So
hence why you're burning more fat.
Like, if you think of your part of your metabolism as just like a furnace, it will burn whatever you throw into it. Like, if carbs are wood and you throw wood in there, it will burn wood. If fat's gas or petroleum or whatever, then it will burn that, and it will burn whatever you throw into it, and it will adapt to whatever you throw into it. And that's why any kind of diet, like a super high protein diet, you'll get really good at converting protein into glucose. Like, all the enzymes that convert protein into carbohydrates or glucose will upregulate. And with with a keto diet, hormones which will break down fat faster to use for energy will upregulate, and the enzymes that you need to break down carbs will downregulate. Like, you will adapt to that, but it all comes out in the wash. And so, like, fat burning doesn't mean you're using your body fat stores.
Yeah.
You can only use your body fat stores if there's a deficit. Like, your body fat stores are literally the backup tank for when you run out of gas. Like, that's literally what it's made for, among a few other things. But the main reason is because if we didn't have that backup tank, we would have to perfectly balance our intake and output forever, or the moment we're 1 calorie shy, we die. Like, you would like, your metabolism would just stop. And so anytime, like, and so this is a really good analogy of like how fat burning and fat storing works. Is you're doing both continuously. It's like you've got one guy taking bricks off the wall, and then there's a guy on the other side laying bricks on the wall, and that's happening 24/7. And the thing that
speed up one guy's work rate and slow down the other.
You give one guy a line of coke, and the other guy, some ketamine, and you're going to get a different rate. And so, but like that's with protein breakdown and protein building or muscle building, or like muscle breakdown, muscle building. There's two opposing forces happening continuously, and it's really like which one is doing more over time. That's literally it. It's not, if I eat, then I'm going to stop doing this, or it's like, well, no, one's going to slow down, one's going to speed up, and then when you're not eating, one's going to speed up, one's going to slow down, and it's what comes out on the tail end over time. But that's got nothing to do with like whether you're burning fat not from your kind of your gas tank. It's like that's more like the kind of brick that's being laid down and taken away. It doesn't change the fact that you don't dip into the reserves until you have to. And then I think the other one that comes up is workouts. I'm in my fat burning zone.
Fat burning zones, yeah.
And that's like, that's not wrong, because
a lot of these things are like 10% right, 90% wrong.
Yeah. And so like fat burning zone, absolutely, because, and you can measure this, like you do the RER, like respiratory exchange ratio, like you put a gas mask on like an oxygen mask, and you basically measure the CO2 output at different intensities. And the higher the intensity, the more you'll rely on glucose. And the lower intensity, you'll rely on fat. Like fat's kind of like the diesel, and carbs are the gas. And so you absolutely are using more fat for fuel during that time, but it all comes out in the wash anyway. You'll just use more carbs at other times of the day and less fat. It all balances out, and it doesn't change the fact until you've ran out of gas, you won't dip into your tank.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to put it is like fat burning is like fat oxidation. That is the process of burning fat for fuel. So if you eat more fat, your body will burn more fat for fuel. Not more body fat, just more fat in general, because you're putting that fuel on the fire. Whereas fat loss is a result of an energy balance equation over time. Are you consuming less than you are burning? So they're two different things. Although they sound quite similar, fat burning is just using fat for fuel. Fat loss is the result of an energy deficit over time.
Like the total amount of fuel that you're using will dictate if you lose body fat or not. Like the fuel itself is kind of like relevant carbs, fats, the total, whether you're in an energy deficit at the end of the day or not.
Because people don't even realize like how does your body actually get rid of fat? And it's in the carbon dioxide that you breathe out, and like urination, like water, like that's literally how it will leave your body. And so it's like people don't even realize like how like the fat is actually broken down into something that gets out of your body. But it's funny, like it literally takes you back to going to university when you're looking at like all of the like, I don't know, Krebs cycle and all that shit. But again, like,
it's been a hot second.
You don't need to know that stuff to get results.
No.
And so like I think people, it's kind of a bit of a side tangent, but people are like looking for like fancy science as a reason as to like why they're not making progress and things, when the reality is like you're just not doing the basics consistently.
Wasn't that like the original start point of why people was putting like butter in coffee and stuff to like thinking they were eating
burn
more fat. So people were just adding boatloads of calories to their coffee. And most people have like milk with it as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like, geez.
But it's funny as well.
Butter in coffee. That's
because I love it when people will say like, oh, I use like BCAAs or like ketones, like whilst I'm fasting, and they say it helps me through my fast. It's like, because it contains calories. Like, you're breaking your fast. Like, even if it's 40 calories, like you're getting something. Like, that's why it helps you, because it contains energy. Like, it's like,
do you know what also helps with a fast? A ham sandwich.
It
just helps me through my fast.
So like, I never understood that. It's like, oh, take these things whilst you're fasting. Like, at least call it what it is, or like a protein sparing fast or whatever. But I always crack me up, and it's like, oh yeah, no, I take these things. It's just a quick, helps me through my fast. It's like, well, it's got sugar and protein.
Well, sweetness.
Raspberry sweets.
You got Sour Patch Kids going on.
Have a Lucozade tablet. Keep me going.
Funny thing is though, like if you had like a glucose tab, say like 1 per hour,
Remember them? Dextrose.
Yeah,
Dextrose tabs.
dextrose tabs.
Remember
I
them?
think they're either 2 or 5 grams of carbs per tab. So you're talking 20 calories tops. If you had one of them, even every 30 minutes, like you're having 40 calories an hour, and you'll probably be all right. Like you'll probably have plenty of energy.
Yeah.
Just pop one of them. And obviously you need to get some protein in. But again, that's where you could say like sugar's great. Like I remember Alberto Nunez, the bodybuilder. He used to be a teacher, and he said I would have Sour Patch Kids in my pocket. And so when I just felt like I was kind of crashing, I would just have one Sour Patch Kid, which was like 3 grams of carbs. And he goes, that would keep me going for like another 30 minutes, like during class. It just little pick me up. But when you look at like the net calorie intake, he's still in a deficit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But no, like you'd look at that and be like, you can't eat sweets on a diet. It's like that allowed him to stick to his diet.
And get absolutely
and he'd get
shredded as
peeled
well.
to the bone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is I'd have my hand in my pocket all the time.
Yeah.
I'd have sugar on my mouth.
You wouldn't be taking up. I'm taking a
Yeah,
handful.
my pocket would be empty in 2 minutes.
I'd end up in a carb coma and have to have a nap.
Yeah. But
You have to take this one yourself, kids.
but literally that is the whole point where for him that makes total sense.
Yeah.
For someone that has been eating shit and junk and sweets and has no portion control, terrible idea.
Yeah.
Like so it's again it's all situation dependent.
Yeah, it's a bit context is king, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Right, we got our final one here. I don't want to get too big.
Jeez. I wish I had that problem.
Yeah, I mean, so
I wish my knob was smaller. Hey, you don't hear that very much, do you? Crikey.
wish I had less girth. I think this was like one of the really common ones with women. It was the idea that like if I lift weights heavy and get strong, then I'm going to look bulky. I'm going to look like a guy. I'm going to look like a female bodybuilder. When really they're taking copious amounts of steroids to look that way. And I mean, I always look at it and I say, you know how many guys want to look bulky but don't, and they're literally putting in their heart and soul into trying to get big, and they're not. I think you're going to be okay.
Like training every day, sometimes double sessions, like they're still nowhere near
Stumbling on getting too big. Well, like, and it's such a slow process. Like building muscle takes so much time.
Yeah.
You're never going to wake up and go, oh shit. Like I'm 15 pounds too jacked.
I knew I shouldn't have done that extra set of bicep curls. I can't fit in my t-shirts now. Like it's
You will never get too big by mistake.
Yeah.
You might change your mind, like what you want to be jacked. Once you're jacked, you go, you know what? I prefer myself slimmer. That might happen.
Yeah.
But you'll never overshoot it. You'll never go, oh, I don't want to be this. And then you wake up suddenly like, oh, I'm way too jacked again.
Yeah.
You definitely want to overshoot muscle, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah.
And I would
You overshoot the fat.
Yeah, exactly.
I would literally say for everyone, like I think when you're in your 20s, your goal should be to get bigger than you want to be.
Yeah.
Like your goal should be to get too jacked, because then when you get to your 30s, you can afford to lose some muscle, still have a ton of muscle. But, you know, if you want to run or do CrossFit or do any of that shit, you've got a really good base, you've got a good amount of muscle, you'll slowly lose muscle if you're not training that way anymore over time, but you've netted the bulk of it that you needed for the rest of your life and you're pretty good. It's the problem is when you get to your late 30s or 40s and you haven't had that 10 years where you're in your prime with no injuries, you know, typically you don't have many other commitments other than maybe an easy job and, you know, a girlfriend, you know, you don't have kids at that point or a career or whatever.
The chance to be a fine thing back then.
Yeah. But I think like again, if you're in your mid to late 40s and you haven't put on that 20-30 pounds of easy muscle that you get when you're in your 20s, I say easy, it's still hard, but it's the easiest it's going to be. You do have a real uphill battle going on to try and get that later in your life. And so I would, if I could go back, I would have doubled down on off seasons and accepted being a little bit fatter in my 20s to gain that extra muscle. Because it's way easier to lose body fat than it is to build muscle. Even if I had to spend 2 years dieting to be in shape, but I've spent 10 years just getting as big and as strong as I could, I'm going to look far better off long term than if I was so worried about having my abs year round in my 20s that I never just took, you know, really went full hog on gaining muscle.
Yeah.
Because I think that's like if most guys could go back there and just been like, I just fucking got big. Like,
Yeah,
Cash in early.
Yeah.
you
Like
see
the
that a
earlier you
lot,
start,
eh?
the better.
Guys who lift a lot of weights, say through their 20s, but their diet is just like they're just over consuming,
Yeah.
and they do get a bit fat, and then like in their 30s they come to you and they're like, oh, I want to get lean.
They look great.
You trim their fat off and they look phenomenal. You're
Yeah.
like, oh god, because they've already built that ton foundation of muscle.
Even if they weren't eating, even if they were eating too much, they weren't doing themselves a disservice from a muscle gaining standpoint, because they're probably sleeping like a log. Nutrition wasn't like, energy intake wasn't a hindrance or a roadblock, because they got ample food and they were training really hard. Like the only thing left is time and genetics.
Yeah.
And so for most guys, like for anyone that's listening that's like in your 20s, accept getting a little bit soft and just get as strong as you fucking can.
Yeah.
And then when you're in your like late 30s, you're going to look so much better. And that's when you want to look good. Like that's when you really like, when you're in your 40s and stuff and you want to be the in shape guy.
And you can literally melt.
Yeah. But I think the whole idea of like, I don't want to get too big is, it's so fucking hard to get big.
Yeah.
Even if you're using PEDs, it's still so hard. And I think marketing and media has made it out like, oh, gain 10 pounds of muscle in 20 days. It's like, it doesn't fucking work like that.
Yeah.
Real world,
Like-
I don't know a single person that has got too big quickly.
Yeah.
I've never had
Never
someone
met-
go, I've done it, Taze. I've really overcooked it.
Yeah.
My delts are massive now.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, are they?
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Never.
Yeah. I benched twice this week.
Yeah.
Ended up benching 400. Don't know what happened.
I've done it
Like,
again.
Yeah. It just,
I've relapsed. I've relapsed and I've added too much quads.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just nonsense. So like, I mean, if you've ever thought that, like, don't worry about it. You won't.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
You'll be just fine.
If that's something you're concerned about, you're safe.
Yeah.
You are safe.
Especially women.
Yeah.
You know, I think the only thing that's going to happen if you get really strong is you're going to look fantastic. Like that's really, and it's going to help you be able to eat more food, drop body fat easier, be more resilient just day to day, you know, have muscle tone, which people
Crave.
I hate it when people say that, because I don't know if you ever read like the sports textbooks, and muscle tone, the literal definition of muscle tone was like how tensed or contracted your muscle is and like at resting. And so like if you're always like, if you're hypertonic with muscles, that's not a good thing. It's like you can't fucking relax. It's like what cramp is.
Yeah.
But then we've turned that into like, I want to look toned. And it's like, I don't know what that, I always look at that and it's like, what, you just want to be flexed just like constantly. It's like, what you want is definition. You want
Looking
muscle tone.
toned and looking constipated. They're quite a similar look.
Yeah. You want some muscle definition going on.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I enjoy this one because like these are common things which we'll still get, and I think we take for granted when we hear these myths, we're like, oh, roll call, like not this old one. But some people still believe it because they're like their profession isn't fitness.
But also, they're going to see more of that stuff than they will hear this stuff.
Yeah.
They're going to hear more of the myths than they will the myth busting.
Yep.
So it's like that stuff, because it's much more common for them to hear that. So it just becomes more of a normal part of their understanding.
Yeah. But if you do have any myths that you want busted, be sure to send them to us. You know, you can comment on the podcast or on the YouTube. But as always, thank you for listening. Be sure to follow us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and we'll see you next time.
If you love this show, please like, share, and leave us a 5-star review so that we can help more people. I'm John Madsen, Supra Human CEO, reminding you to always go get what's yours.